You know alcoholism? It's a greater motivator than hunger. When Johnny Appleseed was spreading apples across the nation, he wasn't spreading Golden Delicious or Granny Smith. He was spreading crab apples. Because crab apples were used to make cider and applejack. Johnny Appleseed was floating down the river with a pile of seeds to make alcohol. Because back then, alcohol was more important than food. It still kind of is. It's what drives humankind. Johnny was like a modern-day Dionysus. He used his powers to bring the world together. In kindergarten when we thought colonists and Native Americans came together over a meal, we were wrong. Johnny was the bartender to both groups. He used to throw bangers in the woods somewhere between Native American settlements and colonist settlements, and both parties would show up. It was a sanctuary of anti-sanctions. A hidden gem driven by humans' need to drift away like Johnny down the river. Food can't provide that kind of drip into the ether. But drugs? God. They're fucking peacemaking tools.
Hello. I can't tell if the frame is moving or not. Welcome back. Thank you for watching again. This is part 2. This is B. I want to reiterate, I really love to hear responses. So if you have any opinions on how I did my monologue and want to give me feedback, I would love that. Post that in the comments below. So, how did the word boundary waters fit into the monologue? Well, as soon as I hear boundary waters, I broke it down. Now normally you think boundary waters between countries, but I thought a little bit different. I thought boundary and waters. So I thought river, and I thought, how does that create a boundary? One of the first things I thought of was Johnny Appleseed. He floated down the river of America, I believe. What river? Apparently it was the Ohio River. Okay. So I thought of the Ohio River, I thought of Johnny Appleseed, and the reason why I thought of Johnny Appleseed was because he was somebody who was like a mitigator for two different parties. So I was like, oh, he's uniting a boundary, and he's in a river. Boundary waters. I also started to think of where boundaries came from and how some people in some cultures don't live with boundaries, and then the possession of land and possession of different types of possession of land. And then I thought of how owning land only came in when America was colonized, and how it might be an interesting story to talk about Johnny Appleseed because he was there right when there was the dispute between Native Americans and colonists on owning land, and he kind of broke that down a bit. And so that's where Boundary Waters came from. 3 good things about the writing. 1, the monologue was written like a thesis. As Decap would say, that's a good monologue. It started with a thesis line and it ended with a reiteration of the thesis. 2, I wrote a story that didn't feel like there was a lot of exposition. It just went straight into this person talking about a monologue. There wasn't a lot of my father and this and the other thing, and you should know this because it was just bam. 3, there was an illusion so we talked about Johnny Appleseed, and then we said he was a modern day Dionysus, and I like ancient illusions. I think they're important. I think they're interesting, like Icarus or Achilles. They're great ways of reinterpreting the world around us. Right, Pat? One bad thing I didn't really like about the writing, it felt like I was hiding almost too much detail. I wasn't giving enough about the character. Any character could have said this. And that's where I feel maybe I need to be a little bit more specific on why this person thinks this way about drugs and alcoholism, 3 good things about the acting. 1, I think I did good framing, and I didn't do it last time. 2, I decided to stage it in a place in an area that I felt more casually comfortable. I had a coffee in my hand. It felt more real. It felt more natural. And I think I want to try to bring that back. I'm going to start there. I'm going to start, trying to find things that feel more natural, feel more real, and then pull that back into maybe a stand-in acting. Because I feel like sometimes when you're standing in front of a wall and you have a camera on you and it's a very close angle, it's difficult to be real. But when you're on the ground, when it feels more conversational, when it feels more like a framing of a movie, you can actually be real. And so I'm like, how do I bring what I did in this monologue into maybe a 3rd monologue or a 4th monologue that is standing and is that close up and real? 3, there was a good sense of acting in the thesis. So I talked about in my writing that I had a good thesis going, where I had the first thesis line. It was reiterated with the last sentence. And I think with my acting, it kind of I took that torch and I ran in the acting, because it's I had that good thesis. I was saying every point that related to the thesis, and I was like, mapping it out, and then it ended with and that's why drugs, or that's why drugs are changing lives, man, or whatever the hell the last line was. One bad thing about the acting, I think I lost the specificity of who I was talking to in my monologue. Like in the first monologue, I talked about how I loved the specificity of talking to my brother, whereas in this last monologue, I don't really know if I had a lot of specificity. Again, it felt like a monologue anyone could have said to anyone, and that's where I'm like, So my goal for the next monologue is, the goal of this monologue writing series is to prep for writing a play. So I want to write a monologue that has greater relevance to the play. I think that'll solve my issue of trying to find specificity in the acting and in the writing. And it'll solve my problems of like, who am I saying this to? Why am I saying this? And where is this person in the world? And I think if I try to map it out the play more in my monologues, it'll make more sense to you, it'll make more sense to me, it'll make more sense to everyone. So thank you so much for watching. My name has been Jackson Bernard Pulaine. This is part of my project called Alphabet Superset, created by Campbell Walker. We're going to create a lot more monologues. There's one a week. And next week is C. Come back and keep watching. Bye. Let's make bad art.